Hello and welcome to the Footy Mailbag. Thanks for listening to us during the 2025 pre-season to help you get your starting team and season strategies in order. My name is Damo and I'm here with SCHorse from InsightFSports. Good to have you back, mate. Thanks for coming on.
No, thank you, mate. Avid listener of the show and really appreciate it when you ask me to come on and chat footy. It's our favourite pastime and, mate, these practice matches are just getting me really excited for the real stuff to start.
Absolutely. Opening round is around the corner. We'll have all the tips and tricks you need to lock in your starting team in next week's episode. But this week, we wanted to do something fun, something different. So in this episode, we'll go through our top 3 point of difference options owned by under 5% of teams at time of recording. Start at 3, then 2, and then reveal our top option last. So, SCHorse, who's at 3 for you?
For me, I'm going to go a little bit left field and someone that no one's really spoken about this preseason. That's Dan Rioli from the Gold Coast Suns. So my thinking with that is that, yes, he's at 500K. Yes, he had a very dominant role at Richmond last year because they're feeding him the ball. But at the Gold Coast Suns, I envision him being the man down there to use the ball coming out of the back line. We've seen that he's a good user of the ball. He likes to run and carry. Sam Flanders is not there. So could there be a Sam Flanders-esque type role there at Gold Coast for Dan Rioli? I mean, he's got the likes of John Noble, Charlie Ballard, who's not really known for his ball use, Bodie Hewland. He's a nice third defender, if you will, Sam Collins. I feel like he might get a bit of ball down there. And at 1%, he could be a really nice point of difference if you can navigate that early buy.
Does the interrupted preseason with that knee injury deter you at all, or do you think that's what's keeping his ownership down?
I think it's keeping his ownership down. If it was the MCL that he had, say he's had that before Christmas, he started training again towards the back end of January. So he's had a good month, a good block of training, and he's been named tonight. So we're going to see him, or he's been named in the game against, who do they play? Sydney in the practice matches. So we're going to see his ability to run and carry and see how affected he is by that knee. But for me, I think it's a really nice point of difference moving forward for a ball user out of your back line, but you've got to be wary of that round 2 buy. So if you've got the cover, to be able to go, yep, I can have him, but still have a fairly strong 18 on field, then by all means, I think that could be a really nice way to go.
I don't mind it. I don't mind it at all. My number 3 is a little bit different to yours. I've gone for James Trezise at Richmond, 275K defender, only in 0.2% of teams as it stands right now. He averaged 56.7 last year in a couple of games that he played, but based on the preseason games, he looks like he's going to have a friendly intercepting role in Richmond's back line. And in the Community Series game, he scored 62 in just 48% of game time. So there is the question mark of how entrenched is he? I think that is something we have to weigh up. But we all had to restructure and pull our teams apart when it was announced that Callum Mills was injured and out for the first 4 weeks. Mm-hmm. But Trezise at 275K, you can keep pretty much the same structure and save 70 to 80K, which maybe you can use to upgrade a Rivers type or maybe even a Jaden Short type to a premium that's probably a little bit more reliable than those two guys.
The ball is going to live down in Richmond's backline too, isn't it?
Yeah, unfortunately, there's going to be a little bit of 2011 Gold Coast, 2012 GWS about Richmond in 2025. So he's going to have a lot of opportunity if he's got a spot there.
Do you see with the 270K price tag more value in him, or say we go 160K up and getting a Jaden Short?
I think the greatest thing about a 270 price tag compared to a 440K price tag is you're not bound to his performance being a premium or close to premium performance. So James Trezise sits in the same sort of basket as an Ari Schoenmaker or a Gideon Coleman. He's obviously injured, but when people were wanting to pick Gideon Coleman, they were talking about being happy with a 75-80 average.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not out of the realm of possibilities for James Trezise. And no, it's a few years ago, but in that one game he played post being picked up in the mid-season draft in that year that he was selected, he scored a 93 in that one game at the end of the season. So
Right.
we've seen that he can score in that 90 to 95 range. It's just he has to have the opportunity and the role to be able to do it.
Spot on.
Who's your number 2?
So we were talking a little bit off air, and I was thinking about putting Sam Darcy into this category, but I'm going to go someone even less owned than Sam Darcy. And at 2% ownership, we're going to go Toby Nankervis from the Richmond Footy Club. So at 590K, he is expensive. But when we're talking about Ruckman, Damo, he's good, tapping to advantage. I know they've got the likes of Hopper, Taranto, who are fairly seasoned midfielders, Jack Ross and the likes in there as well, who are up-and-comers. But he gets a lot of points around the ground with his intercept disposals or intercept marks, intercept disposals, but also his follow-up work is in a tackling capacity for a ruckman's quite good as well.
I like it because he follows up, he heads back down to defence. He's almost, the way that he operates, it removes the need for Richmond to have that clear intercepting defender because that's where he plants himself. But he also is a good around the ground. And as you said, his follow-up work, he almost becomes another midfielder. He's not quite as athletic as the guys like Brodie Grundy and I think we can start talking about Tristan Sherry in that same sort of vein now, but he does have those sorts of qualities which helps his scoring tick along a bit more than the guys that are just straight up ruckman. So
you're right.
I don't mind it, and he's a bit expensive, but at 2% owned, it could be the answer we want in that R2 position.
I love the fact that you brought up the intercept disposals that he gets too. So with Richmond and the way that they're structuring up this year, I feel like the ball's going to be heading back the other way quite a lot. And when the ball goes forward of centre, he plays that kick behind the play. So there could be more opportunity for him to score that way too.
Absolutely. I've gone for a ruckman with my number 2 as well in Jordan Sweet. So 478K in 1.6% of teams. Last year, it took Port Adelaide a little while to work out that Sweet was their number 1 ruck, but at under 500K, I feel that he's got a bit of value in him. Okay. The scoring last season, it was mostly scoring between that 95 and 105 mark, but he's had a full preseason this year. And as the main man, he could be anything. And we're all struggling to lock in that R2 and that we like because it seems to be most are on Gawn or most are on Sherry, but can't afford both with a structure that they like. So you could go full primo elsewhere and bank on improvement from Sweet being that number 1 guy in that Port midfields. Yeah, and as I said, he had a spotty season last year where he averaged, but he averaged around 1 point per minute. Okay. So assuming a full preseason has improved his fitness, a 105 average is not out of the realm of possibilities considering the sort of game these number 1 rucks get because they don't see the bench a lot if they're fully fit. So I think a 105 average is not completely out of the realm of possibilities. And at 478K, you don't have to hold him for the entire year if you want someone better than that. But that makes him about 100K underpriced if he can hit those high scores when his break even is low enough.
I love that. That's someone that I honestly have not looked at this preseason, but now that you've brought it up, I probably will. All
right, we're down to number 1. Who's at number 1? Who's got that crowned position for you?
After listening to you for a number of years, you sort of pick up little bits and pieces as to how you drop information and what to look for in players. And for me, someone who I think is going under the radar quite a bit is Liam Baker from the West Coast Footy Club. So at 443K and 4%, he's going to be that running half back. He's going to be the distributor alongside the young guys of the Ruben Jinbys of this world and the Brady Hoff. I feel like the ball's going to be down there a bit as well. Probably not to the extent that the Richmond Footy Club are going to see it in their backline, but he's a natural leader, and they've spoken about him being in that leadership group, regardless of whether he's named in the leadership group or not. Being that senior figure with premiership experience and having played under Mini before, Andrew McQualter, the senior coach at West Coast, I feel like he's going to be an integral figure in their back six. and he does love getting his hands on the ball. We've seen when he's played this role at Richmond in the past, he has averaged north of 20 touches per game in the past. So there could be some real value there at 440K.
The thing that people look at with halfbacks is kickouts.
Mm-hmm.
Usually Jeremy McGovern has the monopoly on that. So do you think Liam Baker has the ability to score well enough without having the kickouts, or do you think he needs to have a percentage of it to get up to the average that we want? I mean, obviously as a forward, just a 90 average could be a top 10 return.
Yeah, could.
But do you think to get him into a position where people are willing to pick him to start and not trade into him, do you think he needs to show that he's got a share of those kickouts?
To an extent. So he was probably a victim of circumstance at Richmond and a victim of his own ability, because he played as that high half forward, that pressure forward. And then there were times where he was playing on the ball. And then there were times where he'd go back. So you know as well as I do, when you've got consistency in footy, it helps your game or mould your game. You know what you're doing week in, week out, and therefore you've got consistency in performance. Minnie's already come out and said this guy is going to play halfback for us. Liam Baker's come out on SEN radio and stated that he's going to play halfback, and that's where he wants to play for the year. For me, I see McGovern as he might take 2 or 3 steps out of the square and kick long when they're looking to go safe, so to speak. But if they're looking for fast ball movement, I wouldn't be surprised if Baker takes his 3, 4, 5 kickouts a game, takes a few bounces, runs the lines, that short kick, get the handball receive. All of a sudden, he's hit a target, kicking out, run past, got the handball. He's got another possession kicking it 50 metres down the ground, and he's just accumulated 15 points in the space of 10 seconds.
Yeah, they've recruited him for a reason, and I think the best thing about Liam Baker, which could also be his Achilles heel as well, is that he's so diverse in where he can play. He can play through the midfield, can play across half-back, but can also move to half-forward if that's where they need him as well. But sounds like they've recruited him to shore up that half-back line and be that sure sort of head with the young guys that you pointed out there alongside rookie Bo Allen as well. So I do like Liam Baker, and I think in Classic, I think he's a really good selection to maybe trade into if you're not going to start him. But he could be your first selection in SuperCoach draft in your forward line.
He could be. Yeah.
My number 1 is Jack Steele at St Kilda, 585K in just 2.6% of teams. We're all talking about how McRae and Hugo Garcia, if he gets a chance, can transform that St Kilda midfield. But what if Jack Steele benefits just as much from having those two in the guts with him? It was only a few seasons ago he had back-to-back 120-plus averaging seasons. At 585K, you could be getting a top 10 midfielder, and he's only 29. He's still in his prime. He still tackles like a madman, and we know tackles are a honeypot for points, and he racks up the footy. So what's not to like? I think people have been scared of St Kilda because Ross Lyon has changed it from being a rack up the footy kind of game plan, but Jack Steele still has some value in him.
Can I throw some numbers at you, Damo?
Please do.
Before he strained his knee in round 6 last year, these were his numbers from his first 5 rounds. 119, 120, 126, 142, 143. So when we're talking a player like that who he started at 529K and then before you know it, he's at 630K come round 6, there's some huge upside there. And if he can stay fit, the 1-2 combination of Steele and McRae in the midfield there, yeah, it doesn't scream pace. Yeah, it doesn't scream flashy ability, but SuperCoach-wise, you nailed it. The hard ball gets the contested possessions, the tackles. That's what SuperCoach love.
Absolutely. And I think we've gone for the guys like your Bontempellis and your Brayshaws and your Davies and Uniacks around that same price. And people are really jumping on Noah Anderson since he got the captaincy at the Suns as well. Jordan Dawson has had a good preseason. I think we're forgetting that Jack Steele, he has been a SuperCoach mainstay in a lot of midfields over the last few seasons. And I think his injury history over the last little while has kind of scared people away. But it's almost better to start these guys because then you only use one trade to get rid of them. Whereas if you trade them in and then they get injured, that's 2 trades just on the one player.
For sure.
So that is our 1 to 3 top players under 5% owned. And that is it for this episode of the Footy Mailbag. Just a short one, but we recorded this ahead of time just to pull the curtain back a bit because I was not near my podcasting gear. Clarky was unavailable to record as well. So thanks for stepping in. Horse, where can people find you?
You can find us at InsightFSports, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, you name it, we're there. And your good self, you've made some nice little cameos on the show, and hopefully you can join us for our live, where we're going to be SuperCoach commentating the Brisbane versus Geelong game in round 0. So we're giving the viewers at home an experience where we're going to commentate and talk about SuperCoach and the SuperCoach scoring as the game goes.
That's going to be fun. If I can be there, hopefully I can tune in. If not, you can find the Footy Mailbag at thefootymailbag.net with links to our merchandise, our written content, and links to all of our socials. The Footy Mailbag has also contributed to SuperCoach Swordplay's season guide, which is available right now and continues to be updated as well as information comes to hand. You can use the code FootyMailbag10 to get 10% off your order. So go and pick it up. It's a great, great read. You can also join our open Footy Mailbag League. Code is 711704. Entry closes as soon as round 1 gets underway. You can also join our SuperCoach Tipping League. Code for that is 601064. Again, entry is closing soon. Round 1 is the cutoff. If you haven't given us a rating on your listening platform of choice, please do so. It helps your listeners find us. My name is Damo. You can find me on Twitter at DamoSC. Clarky, our co-host, who's not here today, but you can go and follow him at QuantumJC. And our rookie traffic lights will be out on Thursday, the moments after team drops for round 1, and then an updated version if needed after the Sunday teams are confirmed on the Friday. Thanks for listening. We'll talk again soon.